Really, I want to thank you, Jeanette, for everything you do at the Celia Center, supporting adoptees, supporting foster care youth, supporting birth parents and adoptive families. And in New York, it's chilly. It's a little overcast today, but we're celebrating the 1-year anniversary of the restoration of unrestricted access to original birth certificates for all adult adoptees and the establishment of access for direct line descendants of those adult adopted persons and legal representatives of both of those two groups. It was last November that Governor Cuomo signed our bill into law, and it was January 15th, 2020, that it went into effect. So it's an exciting time for us to celebrate this, and also a somber time with the pandemic going on. We just hope everybody is well and safe and staying safe and taking care of yourself and your friends and loved ones. And we want to be here to just have this chat. I want to thank you for having it.
Of course, Tim. Thank you for being here. I wanted to celebrate and just bring us together because this is monumental. It's historical. It's been 1 year. And when this happened last January, this was right before the pandemic. And we had a flood of applications for adoptees to gain access to their birth certificate, and vital records got swamped with all these applications, and then the pandemic hit. And it's been hard because I know a lot of adoptees have not received their original birth certificates. So we want to know what the process is and how that's happening for adoptees right now.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. So we're excited to be here, share this information with everybody, and just say hello from Los Angeles and New York. You know, this is a trying time and a challenging time. We don't get to see everybody. We don't get to travel. We don't get to have these celebrations in person. So Tim and I wanted to just bring us together, celebrate how important this is, know that we're a voice for each other and we want to support each other. And we're also going to help you find ways today also. How can you change the laws and be an impact in your state to open records? So thanks for joining us today. So Tim, a year ago today, you were in New York City and this bill passed. What was that moment like for you in restoring birth certificates and having access in New York now? What was that experience like for you?
Well, a year ago today, this affected, of course, New York City and all of the state. We were in Albany, actually, at a press conference at the state legislature with our bill sponsor, Assemblymember Weprin, our Senate sponsor, now former Senator Velmanette Montgomery, champions of the cause like Assemblymember Pamela Hunter and my Assemblymember Robert Carroll. We were there to celebrate all this. So thanks to them. And it was a great event. It was a wonderful day. Capping off 84 years of working to end this discrimination in New York. So we're here now, and yeah, the applications began flooding in. The City Department of Health for adoptions that are finalized within the 5 boroughs of New York City, and the State Department of Health for adoptions that are finalized outside of New York City. And again, I want to just point out here, especially happy to be here with you, Jeanette, because you're a fellow New York adoptee. I meant to mention that earlier.
Yes, I am.
So we've restored access to your birth certificate, my birth certificate, and 647,960, by my estimate, of birth certificates in the state. And so total up until now, I believe there's been at least 16,000 applications sent in the city and the state combined. We believe it's more than that now. That's based on statistics that I've received as of November from the State Department of Health. We're meeting this with the senior officials there pretty regularly. Myself, Annette O'Connell meets with them as well, with me, with the senior staffers of the New York State Department of Health. So the New York Adoptee Rights Coalition and the American Adoption Congress and our petition, meeting with the state people. And we've had less contact with the city people, but as of a New York One story on October 19th, they had received over 5,425 applications. We believe it's more than that, but I think there's about 16,000 people that have applied. And most of those have been fulfilled, but there are many people waiting. So
yeah, I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting. I sent in my application in February and I still haven't gotten it. So
yes, now as of that, let's talk about New York City just for a second.
Yeah, sure.
right now, the pause in processing in New York State happened from basically mid-March to late June, and they started processing again. And as of November 13th, they had processed 9,327 of 10,647, 10,648 applications. So they had about 1,321 remaining to go. In the city, we believe that they've processed at least 1,356 of about 5,425 applications as of October 19th. So I know there's links, Jeanette, you're going to put into the chat. We want to make sure that people know that there was a petition news update that I put out in November with links for how to contact VitalChek, how to contact the City Department of Health, how to contact the State Department of Health, and follow up on any application questions that you have. And hopefully, if there's, I know a lot of people were getting notifications to redo their check because time had gone by. So if you get a notification to do that, do that. I was speaking with someone yesterday who had a problem with their identification. Just that their first name wasn't fully spelled out, so they're working to rectify that. So there's going to be normal things that come up, and we know that during the pandemic, there's more of a delay than would be hoped, but they are doing more work to get through this. Both city and state are processing.
Okay, so for those in our audience who don't understand or recognize that adoptees do not have access to their original birth certificates, that they receive an amended birth certificate with their adoptive parents' names on it, and then that original birth certificate is archived. A lot of people don't know that. So we do not have access to knowing who our birth parents are. We don't have names, knowledge, medical information. So for an adoptee to enter the world and know that you came from somewhere and you don't know where that is, and this is the lifelong question that adoptees are left with, in wondering, where am I from? Where are my people? Where's my ancestry? And I think it surprises people to know that this is a big part of the adoptee experience. And it's really hard for us to not have this access to this information. And how many states in the country do you know, Tim, where you can have access to your original birth certificate right now?
There are currently 9 states with unrestricted access to original birth certificates for all adult adoptees. So as you rightly point out, Jeanette, just want to go back just for a second here. When an adoption is finalized, the original birth certificate of the adopted person with their original name and their birth parent or parents' names is sealed. That still happens. It's sealed in all 50 states. Even the states that never blocked access to adult adoptees, Kansas and Alaska, seal the original birth certificate. What we're fighting for is to restore unrestricted access to that original birth certificate for the adult adopted person, even though it's a sealed record. So in New York State, for example, we have that done. Now, I know some people are saying there was 10 states with unrestricted access. There's a small question that's come up about the Hawaii statute and whether or not people because that's a statute there for the court file. And there are some questions coming up about whether or not people born in Hawaii but adopted outside of Hawaii are getting access to information through the court file. So we're working with activists out in Hawaii to gather information and figure out the status of that. So it's been called 10 states. Right now we're saying 9 states, and we're working to figure out a question about Hawaii. But yes, so restoring access, it's a basic civil right to have unrestricted access to that document.
Right, and I want to say, as much as it's a celebration, there's also a lot of grief and loss, right? Because birth parents were told, especially from our generation, that forget about this, your child will never find you, you don't have to think about it, you have anonymity. Well, in today's age of DNA, Ancestry, 23andMe, we are finding our birth family members. We are having reunions. Some are ready for reunions, some are not. I do a lot of reunion work, if anyone wants to know how to have a successful reunion. So it can also be very scary for a birth parent to be found. Some want to be found, and some are still living out the experiences and the circumstances at that time, because it is traumatic for any birth parent to not be able to parent their child for whatever the reason was. And they are left with their grief and loss. So it can be hard, as much as we want. People say, why do you want access? Like, you can just contact your birth family. Like, is that okay? How do you do that? We're navigating a system that is very new, but most people, in my experience in the work that I do, want to be found, want to have a healthy reunion, want to have what's called the corrective emotional experience, know where you came from. And also for birth parents, it's healthy for them to see their child as an adult, know that they had a good enough life, that they're okay. What's hard for us, and I'm just going to say this and then we'll get to the questions, Tim, is what's hard for us is when you're an adult adoptee and you go on the search and you gain access as an adult, and then you go find your birth parent and they're deceased, it becomes another loss. And it's like, why do we need to wait our whole lives to find the person that, yes, we formed an attachment to, which is our birth mother? It's important to us. And I think the emotional and psychological piece needs to be addressed and talked about as much as the politics of this, because it's important to us. It's who we are. It's where we come from. It gives us a sense of a foundation of knowing. I mean, we feel, and I'll say, as adoptees, there's a part of us that feels alien. Like, where did I come from and where do I belong? We don't have the rights and the knowing that people who are not separated from their birth families have. And that's what makes it hard for us. So this means a lot to us, and that's why we're having this celebration today. So going back to the questions, how many people and from what time period did it take to make this happen in New York? How many years has this taken? For this?
Yes, well, they started sealing original birth certificates in New York in 1936. But notwithstanding that, to your point about the reunion piece of this, Jeanette, I'll just quickly say that apart from the fact that the vast majority, well over 90% of birth parents are open to contact from their surrendered sons and daughters, as people will learn, if they watch I want to thank you for the National Adoption Conference that took place in November. We talked about confidentiality and discussions of confidentiality with birth parents about not revealing the news of a pregnancy versus legal anonymity, which was never possible because it wasn't in the law, not on placement and surrender forms. There was always a mechanism to unseal the birth record for good cause. And there was no guarantee of an adoption, in which case an adult foster care youth would receive their original birth certificate. Mm-hmm. For those, I've spoken with people too that were concerned about discretion. And we let them know that notwithstanding the 23andMe and Ancestry.com, that access to the original birth certificate provides a greater opportunity for people to make more discreet contact to their birth parents. So for those that were concerned in that direction, they're finding themselves, for practical purposes, notwithstanding the human and civil rights imperative, very much more on our side than they would otherwise expect. So we're very excited about that. And again, the human and civil rights imperative is really what drives this thing. But Lawrence Fisher started the Adoptees Liberty Movement Association in 1971, in spring of 1971, and they had a lawsuit to challenge the constitutionality of New York law and whether or not we could have access to adoption files. While that case did not succeed, they came out of that case and they decided that, we ought to be looking towards legislation at the state level, because adoption rules are made at the state level to restore unrestricted access to the original birth certificate, because everyone has a birth certificate. So since that time, we've been working on this, and there's been many people involved over the years, different groups, the American Adoption Congress, Bastard Nation, and then all the groups that were in the New York Adoptee Rights Coalition, all of us at our petition. There's groups around the country right now in bills, the other coalitions that have formed, for example, the Texas Adoptee Rights Coalition out in Texas, the Capital Coalition of Adoptee Rights that newly formed, and we've got a new clean bill that just came out there, SB 331. So groups all over the country, groups in New York, and individuals working for this, and thousands of people coming together.
Yeah, so what
years, 84 years of discrimination.
84 years. Wow. Wow. And only 9 states right now. So we have a lot more states to cover, educate, lobby for, bring this
Yes.
legislation and pass this
Well, there's
bill.
really 3 categories. There are states with the unrestricted access, states with some form of access, but with conditions or restrictions that will need to be improved upon. And we don't support legislation at the American Adoption Congress. And through our petition and efforts through the coalitions that have been formed, we support efforts to restore unrestricted access without conditions or restrictions, because it's a basic civil right and because of the track record of success of this type of reform in all the states that have done it. It's gone so smoothly and so well that we have found that when we speak to legislators about this, they become very excited about it when they find out that we're not going back on any legal promise. So, yeah.
Okay. And so I'm in California. This is a closed state. So
Yes.
adoptees do not have access to their original birth certificate. So,
Correct.
and maybe others that are watching their state as well. What can people do on their own? How can they be part of this movement in their state? What advice do you have for those that are watching right now?
Sure. Well, one thing people can do is they can always come find us at the American Adoption Congress. I know the link, I think, is there. You can email me at tmw713@gmail if you have any questions. There's groups in different states. Like I said, there's a clean bill that was reintroduced here in Arizona. There's Heritage Arizona is one group out there that we're really excited about. I was just in touch with Brittany today, and she's letting me know that they're involved. I got an email today from the group in Connecticut, Access Connecticut. They're working on SB 113 that was just raised there. And of course, now we've got the Capital Coalition of Adoptee Rights working for Virginia, DC, and Maryland. And SB 331 has been reintroduced. So if people want to contact us to help out in those 3 states, you can. And of course, we have the Texas Adoptee Rights Coalition, led by Shauna Hodgson, working there, Adoptees for Equality as well. She's also my fellow board member at the AAC, helped me with the presentation in November. Shauna, hello, I know you're here. So Shauna's working diligently to help us prepare and follow her lead for the session in Texas. So contact us, reach out to us, and let us know how you want to be involved. And if you get involved, even if it's just to help us with calls to action, you'll get emails and updates, and everyone can do something, even if it's just writing to your legislators, making calls to your legislators to let them know you support the various bills that are out there.
Yes. So can people directly email you to be on your email list? What's your email?
You can email us. You can find us at the American Adoption Congress. You can go to some of those groups that I mentioned, such as the Texas Adoptee Rights Coalition, Heritage Arizona, Capital Coalition of Adoptee Rights, Access Connecticut. Those are groups that are fighting for unrestricted access to the original birth certificate. You can also email me if you have any questions, like I said.
Okay. So for the last part of our talk today, you presented at the National Adoption Conference in November of 2020. You did a great session. It's premiering today on my YouTube channel, if anyone wants to see that. And it's in the chat here, the link. He explains the history of adoption. You did such a great job. You're so good, Tim, at explaining all these pieces because it's complicated. It's politics. There's a lot of steps involved. It takes years of lobbying and writing bills and calling and speaking up for us adoptees. So I thank you, and I thank everyone else. Florence Fisher, I was there at a support group, I think it was like 1989 in New York City, and I met Florence. And that was the first support group I ever went to in my life. And I was like in my chair shrinking because I saw all birth mothers around me. I've never had that experience before in my life. So I just want to say to all my friends out there, adoptees, I do run the Adopt Salon support group. The next one is March 3rd, the first Wednesday of March. It's on Zoom from 7 to 9 p.m. So last words from you, Tim. What else?
Again, yeah, Jeanette, really, thanks for having this little event. And I hope that everybody out there that's tuning in is feeling well. This is an important day in history for us to mark this moment, but also to say what's going on around the other states, that we have to keep this movement going. I want you to know that we're working diligently to garner the support of organizations that supported us in New York so we can try to keep this momentum going. whatever's going on in the world, it's always right to fight for a human and civil right, be active for your cause. And I know we're going to continue to have success with this. So really grateful to everybody, all the people that helped us to get ready for this. And in terms of us speaking well on the topic, Jeanette, there's a lot of people to thank who helped to teach us about this here in the state and all around. So really appreciate it.
Fantastic. And there's a new book coming out. You wanted to let us know about that.
So really quickly, I want to thank Gabrielle Glaser. She has a new book out called American Baby. She actually brought me my copy the other day. I got one. It's coming out in a couple of days. In the spring of 2018, I met a birth mother who told us about research that indicated that the twin and triplet studies that we've all heard about through Three Identical Strangers and Newsday were really the tip of the iceberg about what happened. So Gabrielle goes in depth about a very a reunion story between an adoptee and a birth mother, and talks about the shadow history of adoption, and about some of the information in there is just explosive in terms of what went on in the city, and probably some of the reasons why they created secrecy around this for so long. So I hope that people will pick up a copy of that if they're interested. There's going to be information in there that you've never heard before, brand new stuff. This is not new information. So it's American Baby by Gabrielle Glaser. And in my petition news update last night, I put a link to all of that. If people check the links here, you'll see the link to the book, where you can go to several different places if you want to check it out.
Okay, fantastic. I think that's the end of our celebration. Cheers, everyone. I hope everyone stays well and stays safe. I know it's challenging times, and we're all tolerating this experience, is what I keep telling everyone. And when we tolerate it together, we get through this together.